Hey everybody, my name's Rowdy Meyer, and you might recognize me from other YouTube channels, but today we decided we would create a YouTube channel because many of us have been attending our local government meetings. I think it's imperative that the people understand exactly what goes on. And so this channel will be different than a lot in that I will not edit the video. As long as there isn't some personal information in there, like for example today at the 55-minute mark I deleted 3 seconds of the video because someone mentioned their address. So in an effort to protect those people, I'll do those types of things. But beyond that, this video is completely unedited. And so I want to show it to you guys in its entirety. You can decide how well it went. In my opinion, the meeting started out a little bit rough. We went in, we believed we had a 15-minute time slot to talk. I personally prepared a whole lot, several hours for that 15 minutes to learn. I had 3 minutes when I got there. That part I didn't appreciate very much. But I'll tell you, as the meeting went on, the commissioners and even some of the staff of Jackson County seemed to relax a lot. We got into a lot of just general, back and forth, open conversation, and I really enjoyed that part. Like I told them in the meeting, discourse is healthy as long as it's done respectful. But at the end of the day, I'll let you decide. I hope you enjoyed the video.
Okay, so we're not really going with the time slot. We're just kind of reconfigure at the end.
I don't know what time slot you're talking about.
So on the agenda, it's 15 minutes. I think that she broke it. This is the way our agenda is set up.
Right.
So I think that she just put the names down in the time slots as they came.
Not indicating that each individual gets 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mike Branson. I'm a resident of Jackson County, and I'm an active participant in the community and a frequent patron of local businesses. I'm also a retired veteran of the United States Navy after more than 20 years of service. And coming home to Jackson County makes me feel like I've stepped back in time. Whether I'm enjoying a wonderful breakfast at 1886 or gathering at Trails Cafe with friends or receiving helpful advice from an associate at Tar Waters, I feel like I've stepped back in time to a great way of life. Back in time to when people waved at another driving down the road, and back in time when the community would gather together around a square to showcase their cars and their produce. I also enjoy coming home to Jackson County because I believe we are within a state whose government has enshrined its belief in open government to its constituents. In the words of Thomas Jefferson, whenever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government, that whenever things get so far wrong as to attract their notice, they may be relied upon to set them to rights. I spent the entirety of my military career serving this country from coast to coast, around the world, and I've seen some of the best and some of the worst regions this world has to offer. And after seeing all that I have seen, I can proudly say that I decided to plant my roots here in Jackson County. I do want to recognize that the zoning office has been extremely helpful in helping me establish roots here. Their initial building permit process last year was very easy to go through, and it was much easier than previous encounters that I've had in different regions.
Good.
The purpose and intent of the zoning regulations is what I'd like to talk about, specifically the recommendations that came out out of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
If you would just state which ones so we can follow along.
Yep. So the specific statement that I want to talk about was the amendment to the A1 district, specifically stating that the reduction of tracts from 20 to 3 acres.
Okay.
That, I believe, is not in keeping with the intent and purpose of the zoning regulations. The zoning regulations state that the intent is to prevent the overcrowding and undue concentration of population. It is also to preserve things such as water. It is also to make sure that the land is reserved for agricultural use. Some rural water lines within the A1 district are currently at capacity, and tapping into them is not possible, as per rural water districts. Last year, we just experienced a massive drought to the point where Banner Creek had never been so low since it had been set into commission. And the further I dug in, I also looked into the Jackson County Comprehensive Plan, and there were several statements within the Jackson County Comprehensive Plan that were in diametric opposition to the proposal to drop the intensity of use from 20 acres down to 3. And I can list those here if you guys would want me to talk
I'm
about.
unfamiliar with them. You do understand that the comprehensive plan is not something that binds us or holds us It was a plan that was done many years ago to give guidelines, and it's merely suggested.
Right.
Okay.
I understand that it is a guideline, but the rules and the intent of the zoning regulations don't agree with dropping from 20 acres down to 3 because they do not protect agricultural land and they do not prevent the intrusion of incompatible uses. And once those lands are shifted from A1 down to 3 acre tracts, they'll be changed forever. And agriculture will never return to those specific plots of land.
Okay.
You know,
And we're past that 3 minute, but good conversation. So you do realize that right now, based on current regulations, that all an individual has to do is apply for rezoning,
correct,
and you can put a house on 3 acres.
correct.
And the thought process for the commission was that there are places within the county that are wanting to expand and build homes.
Correct.
So the southern end of the county, that rural water district has enough expansion for over 900 water meters. There are regions down there that do want to expand. So our thought process was to try to simplify the plan. If people want to build and they need, they want to put a house in 3 acres on a piece of property, why should we stand in the way of that? Trying to simplify government. The plan already stands in place that you can come up and ask for rezoning and you can get that changed. You can jump through some hoops. You can do the same thing anyway. Our thought process was just to simplify the process. In no way are we saying that we want the entire county covered with houses. And you know, it was just merely a suggestion. These were all suggestions to go to the zoning or planning board so that they could take a look at them and have an opportunity to chew on them, and then bring back suggestions and see what they think.
What is the current process for applying for, I guess, what would be a variance to have a home built on a 3 acre tract?
It wouldn't be a variance. So I'll let our.
You would have to apply for a subdivision and then it'd have to be platted out. So it'd have to be platted out and then you have to pay, like, the fees are based on the number of plats that there are. And then, we kind of believe that rural water district is part of that too, but I'm not 100% on that. Like because we do have, some new homes in a subdivision just outside of town that they can't get rural water and they built a $400,000 house on a well.
Yeah.
Because they don't have rural water. That, we believe is one of the things in the subdivision regulations. We just discussed it this morning, Kate and I did. But when you apply for a subdivision, that's something that needs to be thought out, is the water.
And during the process of the subdivision allotment, I guess if you will, is there engagement from the surrounding landowners in that subdivision?
Anytime a rezoning is done, there's a letter
Absolutely.
sent out to the surrounding.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's my fear, is that that letter will now not be in place, because if someone subdivides land which would be in the proposal, that wouldn't have to go before any kind of special commission. The surrounding landowners wouldn't have any say or notification, and then buildings could just sprout up without input from the rural farmers and the community alike.
Okay. So it would be very similar if you drive across the Shawnee-Jackson County line. You can see that area is loaded with homes, and they're very nice homes being built on 3 to 5 acre lots right down there. Again, it's merely a process to try to simplify it. If planning has some suggestions, if they want a minimum requirement of frontage, if, you know, those types of things, we're open to that suggestion. Again, we're trying to make county government easier for people who want, a lot of people want to move to Jackson County and live in Jackson County, but they don't want to own 20 acres. In the last 3.5 years, you wouldn't believe how many people have told me, at least in the region that I live in, the people that contact me, the constituents down there, I don't want to own 20 acres. I want to own 3 acres, or I want to own 5 acres. How can we make this a simpler process? So that was the thought process.
And one of the things I'll say too is, you were referring to agriculture. Well, if you just leave it as it is and do the 3 acre plot, you can have cattle, horse, pig, whatever you want on there, because it's still agricultural land. If you do the
Correct.
rural subdivision, that's all out. You cannot do that on there.
I've actually been part of an area where this has happened, and one of my fears is that once a subdivision's put in place, and you get, say, a dozen homes in an area, that subdivision will advocate for rezoning, and that the local farmers may get edged out, or the people that have an unpopular opinion about wanting to have cows, or horses, or sheep, or chickens in their yard, could potentially get zoned out. So, protection of the way of life in Jackson County and the way it is my platform as far as today's speaking goes. I'd like to just make one closing observation, one closing statement.
Sure.
And then I can move on. In the Jackson County Comprehensive Plan, it does state that Jackson County cannot provide urban services into rural areas. The county cannot afford to build and maintain rural roads, serve dense outlying developments. New commercial and industrial developments are desirable since they will generate jobs and tax revenue. But those funds should be committed for infrastructure to serve those urban uses. Unincorporated rural areas of the county generate relatively little tax revenues to provide services and infrastructure, yet residential growth is extensive along US Highway 75 and in rural areas. From the spirit and intent that I've seen from the predecessors that were set forth in the planning regulations, growth was encouraged.
In the comprehensive
In
plan.
the comprehensive plan, growth is encouraged, however, it needs to be managed responsibly. And then in my closing statement, I would just like to say that I'm proud to call Jackson County my home, and my intent here today is not to approach these issues from an adversarial platform, but rather to provide constructive feedback and input in an attempt to preserve the legacy left behind by our predecessors, so that the way of life in Jackson County and the things we enjoy today can be preserved for those that live here now and for future generations.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Comments? Yep.
Jeanette Branson, I also married Mike Branson. I'm also retired at the age of 20 years. There's just a couple things as far as the zoning goes. I had all the same concerns as my husband did as far as the 20.
Sure.
One of the reasons we moved here was the wide open spaces. We didn't want the neighbors right next to us. One of the things I wanted to address was the accessory dwelling units. That's one of the things that piqued my interest in going to the planning, because it was something that I was curious as to if that was something that was going to be allowed. So would be something that myself and others would be interested in. That along with, we're in the middle of construction, so we have a recreational vehicle on our property. Our original plan was to move into it, but we decided to rent instead. But also thinking about maybe moving into it as we finish our process. And it was just kind of unclear as far as how the temporary use or structure thing went, as far as if I bring a recreational vehicle onto my property and I'm constructing, does it have to be removed? I mean, but going to the zoning office, asking the questions, I mean, it's nice to have guidelines, and I appreciated, there's something to set, something in place to say what is temporary use, what is temporary structure, because what I came to understand is, as a property owner, I would like to do certain things on my property, but also in a neighborhood of other property owners, I want to make sure that I'm respecting those around me and understanding that I or my neighbors would want somebody just to plop something on the property and it become, a trash area. They're not disposing of their waste properly and possibly bringing down value in the neighborhood. So my main thing was I would love to see that accessory dwelling unit thing approved in there. In our case, we might require a variance, so being open-minded to the cases that don't exactly fit the description as far as we're building in the middle of the property, so we might want that accessory dwelling unit in front of where our current build is, because that's actually where the structures are, the old house that will be taken down. I think that's a great opportunity for people, because at this time and age with the economy the way it is, to give them access to having another structure on there that they can have family, take care of parents, And also on that note, with those of us that are building, for those that might want to come in and have a temporary use, maybe they want to request, can I build something that I can request to be classified as an accessory dwelling unit later? Something that will be in addition to that primary residence that I build, so that you don't have to remove it, or we don't have to make it inhabitable. We can make it something that is a part of our property.
Thank you, I appreciate your comments. You guys have anything?
Nope.
Yeah,
That's good.
Are
Thank you.
you referring to a mobile home, an RV, or a residence that's already there?
Well, so in a temporary use or structure, they have the prefabricated shed or cabin, recreational vehicle camper, tiny home, shipping container. So basically anything that you would put on your property and dwell in while you're constructing. But so what's like you with recreational vehicle, like whether I'm building or not, I'm gonna have that. And then with a tiny home, somebody too might, hey, I want to get raw in and put that on there. So at first I was kind of step back, but then when you look at it and you read it and you understand it, it's not really to say, hey, you can't do this. It's, we need to put guidelines in place so you don't, again, plop something down there, don't take care of the land and bring your neighborhood down.
Well, after talking to you this morning or earlier, we thought maybe there was a little confusion with like, it sounds like a shed. So we discussed maybe adding in like used as a temporary dwelling in there, just to say that these ones are only constricting if you're using it as a temporary dwelling. So that it's more clear that it's a temporary dwelling and not just a portable shed or something on the property.
Right, we didn't want people to misunderstand it and think, oh, you can't have a shed on your property. No, that's not, so, yeah, they added that.
Yeah, and that's
phrase
kind of
in.
like when you first read it, you're like, okay, like I put a shed on there,
No.
I'm gonna have to,
No,
have to
it
take
makes
it
it a
off.
little more clear that way, so Kate's gonna present that at the next meeting on the 8th, so.
Yes, and so you're for the temporary dwelling with the additional house for someone to live in, and you would be in favor?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because,
That, so just to walk you through a little bit, the thought process of the commission was that we all have parents that are getting older, it would be a great place versus a nursing home, and so our thought process was if we can help folks allow family members or whatever to live there, but yet keep it connected because it wasn't two different lagoons, two different power sources, that type of thing, it would be a benefit to the community. And so that was the thought process when we started talking about this. And Kate brought it to us and said, hey, let's talk about this because we've seen more of that in the community, and that's what spurred this conversation. Instead of holding people back when they can do that and they can help family out, let's see if we, and again, making county government simpler and trying to be helpful. That was the thought process.
and that's where like in special cases, like maybe you would, it's all one bill, but we brought power to the new house, we have power up front. If we wanted to put one in, we might have to put it up front, we might need another lagoon or septic. Just for the commission to be open-minded on a case-by-case basis when people are requesting.
And I think you'll find out with us, we're open-minded, we listen to everything, so.
Yeah, and again, then Northeast Kansas Environmental would have to come in and take a look. Will that piece of property handle 2 lagoons or 2 lateral fields, that type of thing? Because again, you don't want something that is detrimental to your neighbor. Yeah, so good comments, thank you. I appreciate it.
Keith almost said it, I call them back houses, is when I go to Texas to see my daughter, I stay in their back house, so I'm a big advocate of that.
Yeah.
So,
Does that answer your question, or is that helpful, or is there anything else we can answer?
No, that was it. It would just be
Okay.
my hopes for those special situations that don't meet the guidelines or the willingness to maybe tweak stuff
Yeah,
so
did
that
you
it fits us.
Did you have an opportunity to express that at the zoning, or the planning meeting also?
I expressed some things, but I think it was more helpful for me to actually go in there and talk to them and ask questions and have an open dialogue.
We're very blessed to have a good office.
She came in this morning and we discussed it and discussed that a variance would be
Perfect.
what's needed.
That's how it should work. Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks.
Am I up?
You gotta put your name down.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Randy.
Patty, how are you?
Hey, I have some pleasantries written in here, but because I have 3 minutes, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to skip them. Other than just to say, you know, Jackson County, my home, is a wonderful place to call home.
Yeah.
I've raised 2 kids, I run 2 businesses. Jackson County has its problems just like any other place does, but I think if we work together, I think we can make that better place. The other thing I want to remind everybody is discourse is healthy. It's a good thing if it's done respectfully. It's absolutely an okay thing. We can disagree and we can get along. I promise you this is true. I'm going to try to hurry because I have 3 points I wanted to get to.
If we need to run along, I'm getting flexible with everybody else.
I
So.
want to tell you guys the story of Tom and Tiffany. You may or may not know this. This is a couple out of South Dakota who I've been friends with for a while.
Were they the doctors?
No,
No.
that's Circleville. This will be quick.
Okay.
Okay. So she's an executive level person. He runs a martial arts studio in South Dakota.
Okay.
So anyway, they came down, they bought some land here in Jackson County. They're 4 hours away. Now, I want you guys to know something about them. They've dreamed their whole life of owning land. This was such a huge thing for them. They saved their money responsibly for many years, finally bought this piece of land, brought a camper out there so that when they came down, they could work on their fence and do these things as they work on the transition. Since that time, Tiffany has accepted an upper management position at Hills in Topeka. As I mentioned, Tom's plans were, when they get here full-time, to open a martial arts studio here in Holton. My question, I got a couple questions with you guys. Can you guys guess how the community treated them when they got here?
I have no
Okay,
idea.
so really nice, right? So there was produce that was delivered, neighbors said hello, good stuff that you would expect out of Mayberry, right? But I have to tell you, I can't tell you how sad they are, or how freaked out she got when she received a letter from you guys that stated she faced a $500 per day fine and 6 months in jail per day offense for that camper being on there, and that they were demanding she remove that camper and file for a building permit on a house they haven't even started building yet. So what do you suppose her thoughts are of Jackson County government?
Well, I guess back up, how did she, she owns the property, they own the property, I assume they came into the office and told them they were putting the.
It's already taken care
I
of.
know it's taken care of,
But I'm trying to, I want a little back story here, so.
They moved the
I-
camper on, that's what they
Yeah,
did.
yeah, so explain,
So they purchased the property, they had a camper on the property, it was somebody complained that they were living in the camper.
Okay.
So they got a letter stating that they can't live in the camper without an active building permit, doesn't have an active building permit. She came in Friday, Monday, today's Monday, so it must have been Friday, Thursday or Friday last week, and they're not staying there full-time yet, so it's okay, they're only staying while they're here in town, so it's fine, and she was told that once they have an active building permit, they're welcome to stay in that camper for 18 months while the building permit is active.
so that was resolved.
That part's fine, that's not my point. My point is, do you guys consider the words used? Because she came to my house in tears, scared to death. I mean, it would be so simple to say something to them like, hey, Tom and Tiffany, welcome to Jackson County. Here are our current regulations.
Right.
Like, if you have a question or see you some special needs, look us out. I mean, we didn't have to scare her to death. I think my point was messaging.
We didn't send the letter,
Came from the zoning office.
came from the zoning office,
But it's a
and it
standard
came to the
letter.
zoning office because it was triggered by someone complaining about it. How would you, I mean, we have 3 people in that office that are worked to the bone.
Yes. 100%.
And so what that does is triggers the letter's sent out. But because it triggered that letter, they came in and they went through the process. Did you ever, as a friend of theirs, let me ask you this, as a friend of theirs, living here in Jackson County, knowing the right places to go and the things to do, did you ever say to them, hey, you may want to check with zoning and planning?
That's the reason she came in. Because they said, calm down, it's gonna be okay.
Right, but prior to them ever putting the camper up is what I'm
No,
saying.
no,
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
And the
Okay.
letter is a standard letter, it just says what the articles are in violation of. and it
I
has
understand
been.
the standard level, why do we have to scare people? I mean, let me ask the question
It
differently.
just
Will you
says-
guys really take someone's freedom from them over a zoning violation? Really?
I don't understand what you mean right about taking someone's freedom.
6 months jail per day, that camper sits out there if they don't move it or get a building permit?
I don't have one.
That's their freedom. Will you guys really do that?
So let me ask you,
I mean-
we can go back and
Yeah.
forth on this all day, but if somebody bought a piece of property next to you, moved a camper in there, and you didn't know what was going on, you knew what the regulations were,
Yep.
and you decided that you didn't like them having that camper there, what authority, what teeth, because that's one of the complaints that we've all gotten,
Yep.
that we have all kinds of regulations on the books, but we have no teeth behind it.
Yep.
And so in order to do that, we either get rid of the regulation, which we've done a lot of, because I'm a firm believer, if you don't have any teeth behind it, why have
Why
it?
do it?
It's a waste of paper and ink,
Yeah.
okay? But this has been in place for a long time.
Okay, but just because it's been in place don't make it law. And at the end of the day, the Chevron decision of the Supreme Court said, it isn't a law. You guys can't throw somebody in jail. But that didn't be my point. I don't want to derail this. My point was just, maybe we should consider the messaging itself.
What would you have it say?
I would have it say, hello, Tom and Tiffany, welcome to Jackson County. Here are the current regulations. If you need something special or you need something different, please come see us. We're happy to help you.
Okay.
Isn't that so much better than I'm going to put you in jail for 6 months per day and a $500 fine per day? I just thought it was kind of silly. But
Okay. No,
I would greatly make a recommendation to work on that language. I do it in business all the time. It's not it's how you say something. And she came to me quite freaked out. Next thing I want to talk about is last week's zoning meeting. And I just wanted to point out to you guys that this meeting was held in your guys' advertisement. It said that everyone was welcome to come. They get into the meeting,
My advertisement.
but you're my elected officials. Where else do I go?
Right, what do you mean in my advertisement? What do you
The meeting
mean?
was advertised in the paper.
Was it advertised?
Oh, in the whole report.
Okay, the whole report. Said we're welcome comments. Okay.
Everybody's
So
welcome to come.
they get into the meeting, they try to adjourn the meeting, they don't want to take comments, and luckily, we have a copy of it with us, right? And we can say, hey, you said you would take comments, which then they debated 4 or 5 minutes before allowing the people at the meeting to comment when they said, hey, we welcome comments. So if you guys really want the public's involvement, maybe having a conversation with those committees and saying, hey, we encourage this, this is a good, healthy thing.
Sure.
That didn't happen.
But I guess I'm confused because this is the minutes to that, and
Yes.
people did make comments.
They did, because when they tried to adjourn,
Okay,
we stood up and said, wait a second, you can't adjourn. You said you would welcome comments.
so walk me through that. I think you were there.
No, I wasn't.
You
there.
weren't. You weren't there.
I can walk through that if you like.
Yeah, Mike, there.
So the meeting went on, discussion amongst the committee itself.
Okay.
Us in the back, we sat back there as a general public and listened in. The members of the meeting were nice enough, they were conducive. We asked them to go ahead and maybe zoom up the screen a little bit so the rest of us in the back could see. We also asked them to turn up the volume a little bit on what they were saying so we could hear.
Sure.
Both of which they did. And towards the end of the meeting, there was a very quick movement to adjourn the meeting. And as that meeting was adjourned by the chair, Jonathan, I believe is his name,
Jonathan Weimer.
I pointed out, I said, hey, excuse me, the public notice published in the Whole Recorder and also the public notice available on the county's website says that the public is intended to invited to attend and provide input. To which Jonathan's response was, that's next week's meeting. I had to reiterate on more than one occasion that wasn't the case. And he seemed resistant to letting us speak, but finally obliged, and we were given the chance to speak at the time. And we were given a generous amount of time. The group was given a half an hour to speak, which I thought was great because we could actually formulate what we had to say and have a constructive conversation.
If you need it, it will be helpful to you. This was recorded. You're welcome to have it. So you can see it for yourself. I just wanted to bring up the point. We talk about no one showed up to meetings. It's a two-sided agreement, right? We're going to try to do better. I hope you've noticed.
I encourage you to, please, thank you.
Here we are, right?
Yeah.
Last thing I want to talk, I know my time is very limited, but I wanted to talk about this new requirement. You and I spoke about this, to provide an itemized list of building materials when you get your permit. When I went down there to get it, I was told that that's law, that we have to do it. Can someone direct me to the legislation that says that's true? Because I can't find it anywhere. We've looked for it, we
It's
can't
in our
find it.
building permit packet. It's not legislation.
So it's not a law's
It's-
recommendation.
We need to have something to show.
County
the cost of
regulation.
things.
County regulation is what you have to do if you want to get a building permit.
Not state law.
It's not a law, and you weren't
Not a
told you
law.
had to go to Topeka, we just asked that you go online and find what it is, and Kate even said that we have a spreadsheet that you can fill out. Like, we have a spreadsheet that's available, you can go online and print
I
out
think
your
that's
card, get it
perfectly
in.
fine for you guys to say, hey, this helps us out a lot. I have no issue with that, zero. But to say, hey, this is a law,
I don't know where you get the law from.
that's what I was told. is
It's
that-
a requirement for
It's
the
a
building permit, it's
requirement
not
for
a
the
law.
building.
Yeah, so I'm like, where's the legislation? If that is the
It's a
case?
requirement for the building permit. And we talked about this the other, last
Yes,
Monday.
yes, I wanted to bring it to you and say, hey, you know, a law is a law. There's a reason why we have the executive branch or judicial branch and the legislature.
I'm fully in,
Okay.
I understand this, so we don't
Yeah.
need to go through that.
Yeah, and I won't.
Familiar.
Okay, last thing I wanted to just say, just to close. I love living in Jackson County, I want to stress it again. I have 2 businesses here, they're very successful, I pay lots of taxes.
Okay?
Okay, I've raised my kids, kindergarten, graduation, life is good. But I really want to encourage you guys, if Jackson County wants to grow, it's not a tax and spend process. It is just absolutely not, it's a free market process.
Okay, hang on, I'm
Okay.
gonna ask you something, does that have anything to do with zoning?
Okay. Well,
If this is not about zoning,
it is, the next sentence is, if we would just remove regulation, enhance personal freedoms, everything would grow a whole lot better.
okay, appreciate it.
Would you have suggestions on what we free up?
I would love to. I would love to spend more time doing it. You and I had a conversation. I said, what we want to do is shrink the size of the government, increase personal liberties. I'm 100%. If what we want to do is grow government, I'm not interested. And so I stand on that. I will try to be at more meetings. We will try to be at more meetings to have input in it. I appreciate you guys. I know your job's hard. I know it.
And I want to address that. In the last 4 years, Mark's been here too, we have shrunk government in some capacities. We have put one person in the office at Road and Bridge. There was 2 before. We have cut expenses on refuse coming through here. We are working on doing things like that all the time. We don't want to grow government.
Dan, can I ask you something just on this? How does the people know this? I mean,
So,
how do we get the message to the people that these things are
That's a
happening?
great question. I'm glad you asked that.
Please.
Because we talked about this
Yes.
last Monday. We had I thought, a very good conversation on my way home.
Yep.
And in the garage, I sat and talked to you for another 15 minutes. So every year, as a county commission, we're required to figure out what our official publications are. And I don't know, since dirt was made, it's been the county, it's been the Holt Recorder.
Yeah.
That is our official publication. I've told you on my way home the other day that the other thing that we've tried to do to create an ability for people to get information is we have a website, or we have a brand new website that can be accessed to anybody, find information on it, calendar, all that kind of stuff. We have a Facebook page. Anytime we create regulation, which we do from time to time, resolutions, whether it's dealing with minimum maintenance roads or it's dealing with whatever it may be, those things go on that Facebook page. Road and Bridge, under our administration, has a Facebook page. They do multiple things. They put on that Facebook page when they're going to have a road shut down, where they're doing construction projects, road conditions, all kinds of information. 3.5 years ago, there was none of that. You had a DOS-based, black screen, green writing website. I believe it's very important to get information to people. I always have. And so those are the things that we've changed. But you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right?
Yes.
I had a conversation with a
Yes.
gentleman sitting in the back last year after our budget revenue neutral meeting. And I called him back because I thought he had some really good ideas at that time. And I called him back and I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to require all department heads and public officials, from the sheriff, commissioners, everybody. They're going to be in that room for 4 hours, from 3 in the afternoon till 7 at night. You as the citizens, and it's far enough out that we have time when suggestions are made, we can dig back into the budget and go, you know what? I heard this the other night. I want to check into this one. So it gave us that freedom to change that budget prior to the revenue neutral meeting when it's drop dead date, right? You know how many people showed up? Anybody have a guess?
None.
0. You know how disappointing that is? I mean, I don't know what we do to be more transparent than what we've tried to do in making county government more transparent. This door is open from 9 till 4:30 every Monday. We started, Mark had a great suggestion a year and a half ago, that on Monday nights, once a month, let's open up the door, we'll come back up here at 6 o'clock, and we'll sit here as long as it takes, as long as people come in and they want a question, we'll have a work session. That's all it is. No decisions made, it's a work session. And so folks like you can come in and say, hey, what about this? Or can you walk me through that? Or can you tell me what the county's thought process is on this? Okay, let's do it. So we started doing it. You know how many people showed up for that? Very few. Maybe 1 or 2. There was a couple of meetings, where we had 30 or so, but they were all about the same question. But rarely do we get anyone in here to want to ask the kind of questions that you are, to have the conversation, to have the dialogue. It can be a lot of yelling and screaming. I'm great, I'm perfect with good dialogue, good conversation.
Keith, the only thing I would add, I don't know if you know this about
Can I ask a question real quick about that?
You certainly can.
So that communication channel is obviously not working because the public's not engaged, so what new idea do we have to correct that?
So I don't know what else we would do. Where would we put it? KNZA? I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. If in 3.5 years we have changed the process other than using the Holton recorder, I don't know what the process is to get people to get involved. If I want to find out something about something, how many of you are all on PPP or PPA or whatever it is, right? How many of you? Show of hands. Okay, so why wouldn't you be part of the Jackson County Commissioners?
So it's actually difficult to find the Jackson County Commissioner's website on the Facebook page because it only has 300 or so followers, where PPA Holton has over 10,000 followers.
But if you Google, if you go to the top of the Facebook and
If I may,
yeah.
when we have something coming up, right?
Right.
I'll put it on my own website, I'll put it on PPA,
Right.
so y'all should know, but it still don't help.
Yeah.
It still does not help.
I guess what I'm getting at is, I don't know what that venue is, if we've changed, we've added multiple things to try to get information out to people and have this door open. Lady from Hoyt, she's the one, she suggested a long time ago, have evening meetings, I work during the day. And then when Mark suggested, I went, that's a great idea, let's do it. But can't get anybody to come in and have a conversation.
I have a couple easy suggestions, free and easy. One would be utilizing PPA Holton, since it does have over 10,000 followers and people are on Facebook all the time. And it's a great platform to
They are.
communicate with constituents. And my other suggestion would be when someone signs up for a 15-minute slot, give them the full 15 minutes. Because otherwise, if I come in and I've put a lot of thought and time and due diligence into my notes and I've done my research, 3 minutes is not long enough time that I feel that I can articulate my message without trying to rush it out.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, last point on that, I want you to address what you said real quick.
Yeah.
So, you probably, I don't know if you know this, you know this about me, so our efforts through our company reach about 90 million people a year. I know a ton about it, a ton. There's a lot of things that we can do constructively that cost almost no money to get the messages out. You know, there's even little money, $5, and I can target every male in Jackson County with an average income of $50,000 or more, and I can target them specifically. There are things that can be done. The other thing is, if I post a bulletin on EMP Shield's wall that says, hey, employees XYZ, and nobody reads it, I have some responsibility for that too. I have to find a way to communicate with my employees and to get them engaged. And when whatever I'm working don't work, I gotta change my tactics. Because whatever I'm doing, even I'm trying hard, it just isn't driving. And so I think if the community works together, I think these are healthy. I think us putting them on Facebook, I think recording, put it on YouTube. Put your on YouTube. If you want to know how it goes, call Coffee County. You know, they put every single one on YouTube, and I think there's probably some good stuff and probably some bad stuff that comes from it. And maybe it'll get people engaged.
Are you referring to geofencing?
No.
Okay.
No, in that particular case I wasn't.
Okay.
But social media is full of all kinds of analytics.
Okay.
You can do lots of things. So, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys sign the sheet, you want to just set it on that table so we can sign on?
You want me to sign it?
Yeah, and then set it up there.
You bet.
Who's next?
Matt, I think Matt's up.
Good afternoon,
Hey,
gentlemen,
Matt.
Hello.
ladies.
Okay.
I got calls all weekend after we went to the planning meeting. I just want to say, first of all, the planning meeting went really well. I think that when 20 or 25 of us walked in, their expectation was like, oh, whoa, these people are mad. And like, as they discussed, we got the public comment period, and everyone realized that, oh, hey, we just had input. And I think that in discussing with some of the members, they recognized that there was valuable input, because there's things they hadn't thought of. Which again, this is important to get this input, as you guys have all said, trying to get people to come to the meetings and provide input. That being said, you're all aware, we've had people that have said they didn't provide input, and they don't get responses back that they feel are adequate or, meet their input. And it is what it is. But what I heard from most people over the weekend that were talking about this is, I think folks were just completely blindsided when we put out there what we saw in these zoning rules. Most farmers sometimes just said, well, what do you mean that they can tell me where I put my chicken house and how big it is, or I'm gonna put a machine shed in, and they got some sort of authority to talk to me about how I can do this. I've lived here for, forever. And they're mad. Frankly, they're mad.
Wait a minute,
Well,
time out.
back up. I'm trying to figure out
I'm
what
not
that's
sure what
gonna
you're talking about.
Well, apparently, based on what I saw in these zoning rules, even in Ag 1, the zoning committee has some sort of authority in the appraiser's office that you have to get a building permit to put up a machine shed, and you have to have this list of materials, and you have to
Well, let's
ask
address that
permission.
first, building machine shed.
You still have to get a building permit. You don't
That's
pay a
correct.
fee for it if it's an ag building. You
Okay.
still have to get a building permit.
Right, asking
It's still
permission.
gonna go on your tax.
That
roll.
doesn't make you free. You have to ask permission, and that's I think the rub with a lot of these folks.
We've been in a zone county for years.
I understand,
There's a lot of
the
fun.
zoning began, Dan, you were here too. Zoning began when there was a corporate hog farmer going up by Whiting, and people were like, whoa, I don't want to smell this.
Of course.
And so it has evolved, and as I pointed out when I talked to them, I said, how did the tax code get to 82,000 pages? One meeting at a time. People well-intended, right, as you guys believe you're well-intended, I think that you believe, I don't think that you guys are sitting there going, but you're well-intended about wanting to affect the future in the zoning.
But I'm trying to figure out
May I finish
how
this,
we
sir?
came up from
May I finish
this.
this, sir?
Just a minute, please, Matt, because you brought this up. I'm trying to figure out how we came up, started with this, which is the zoning regulations we were gonna talk about, that you asked to talk about, to putting up hog sheds and putting up machine sheds and everything else. That's been in place for years. We're talking about the amendments.
And people were unaware
No,
that
they
the
weren't
county
unaware.
believed they have that
They
authority.
were not unaware.
Well,
Were you unaware of the zoning regulations?
I was not aware that you guys believed you
No,
had
no,
this
no,
much
no.
power.
This started long before us, so don't say that we
Well, you-
did not
You
do
continue to
this.
enforce this, you believe that you have that power.
We did not.
Is this a legislative body? Do you three gentlemen believe you're a legislative
are.
body?
We are.
Under what statute are you a legislative body? Where is it you're allowed to write statutes or laws?
We are allowed to write regulation.
The regulation is not a statute. The
We are
Supreme Court
allowed to
decided that
write
3 weeks ago.
resolutions.
It's the law of the land now. The state
Resolutions.
legislature has informed me
I'll
that
tell
you
you
don't
what,
get to write
I'll
laws.
tell you what I'll do. I will give you a statement from our attorney.
Well, that doesn't.
Make a note of that.
Hey, your attorney and my attorney can disagree when we go to court. We find out what the court says. And that's what the Supreme Court said. They said that no law exists that has to first come before a state legislature or U.S. Congress. And that interpretation is up to the courts or the legal body that
So if
wrote
we
the
have no
law.
resolutions and there's no teeth behind those resolutions
Right.
or those zoning laws. So let's use noxious weed, one of your favorite subjects. If we have no teeth behind those noxious weed resolutions, then how do we control
It's
it?
a civil code. Is all it is. It's a civil code. It's not criminal law.
If we
I'm
have,
ready to explain it to you. 'cause
if
I've already
we
talked.
have it,
I've already talked
we
about it.
have to have those in place in order to have teeth behind certain things. Go ahead with your statement. and we'll be done.
Okay, it's a civil code. Under a civil code, you can file a civil penalty. You can say, hey, I'm gonna fine you X number of dollars,
Okay.
or, whatever, we'll take you to court. Would that not be any different than, Keith, let's say you and I are neighbors, and I set up, my lagoon, and it leaks onto your property, you could file a civil case against me, could you not?
Just go ahead. I'm not an attorney, so we're not gonna play that.
That's right, that's right. You guys are not attorneys, you're not a
It is we are a legislative body, though.
you don't get to write laws. And that's why Tim Morrison has come to this office, maybe not necessarily you guys, there are times say, hey, you find a law that someone's breaking, I can go enforce it, but you have a civil code, I can't go out there and kick
We're
it.
That's
getting
not
on the
correct.
zoning. Let's get back
That's
on the
not
zoning.
correct,
if that's
because
what
we
were
created-
speaking about
we
now.
I'll
created-
answer his questions.
We created a resolution for trucking that deals with the rock quarry out here, because we wanted to maintain a single lane in, single lane out. That, he can write a ticket on.
Okay, well, maybe so, but.
No maybe
the-
about
The
it.
Supreme Court
No
decided 3
maybe
weeks ago,
about
and
it.
everyone's gonna have to come to heel, but I'll bring it back to zoning,
Thank
as
you.
Mr. Pruitt has asked.
Thank you.
So, I guess I just want to inform you, and then that people are really angry about this. And the main thing that I got from a lot of people is that under these large scope projects, particularly NextEra, it would seem that this attorney is working for you guys to help you tailor the rules to fit them so we can get that. But on the flip side,
Are you
the
kidding
people are
me?
mad, the people are mad.
We're not
because-
going down that path.
The people are mad because you're
You're done.
controlling what they can do on their farm.
Thank you. You're done. And if you wouldn't get on Facebook and stir people up with misinformation and wrong allegations, people wouldn't be stirred up. If you deal in fact, and you would reach out or have them reach out to our zoning and planning office so that they can explain it, or you can get the truth out of them, life would be a whole lot better.
It's interesting coming from you, Mr. Kelly,
Yeah.
that you stated
Yeah.
dealing in facts.
Yeah, yeah,
That you yourself stated dealing in facts. I want to make sure that's on the record.
yeah. Have a seat. Who's next?
Angela? Angela?
Is it Angela?
So to give you a little bit of background on myself and my husband, we chose to move to Jackson County to pursue, I'm Angela Allard, by the way, sorry. We chose to move here to pursue our freedom. We were forced in our jobs. My husband worked for DOD after being in the Marine Corps. And we gave up our retirement, and we gave up our operating ranch, and we gave up our jobs, and we took a 65% pay cut because we refused to take the jab, the COVID shot. So we chose to come to our community here. We saw what Jackson County had to offer. We really enjoyed what they had to offer. We enjoyed the community, we enjoyed the people. The policies seemed decent. We could do what we needed to do with our land, providing that we got the proper permits and did all of that. Some of the new regulations that they're talking about bringing in, my concern is it's going to generate higher taxes. And we have to remember there's consequences to our actions and what we put into place right now. And right now, so many people are being taxed from everywhere. And I understand that it's important to get the money in the government to keep it operating and do what we need to do for the county. Looking at the budget, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was something we were like 6-9 months in reserves that, over budget that we had as a safety fund or something like that. Which I think is wonderful, and we need to be there, and I'm glad that our county is not in debt. And so that, again, gives us a lot of determination on why we wanted to be here, because we also pursue a lifetime free. And so that's free of debt and free to do what we need to do within reason, within law, within decent regulations. My point is, when we get higher taxed by the county, and then we get a letter from Water District 3 that now everybody's water bill is going up $5 per month, that's $60 a year. Then we get our proposed taxes this year, and our proposed taxes go up another $100. And so now we have that we're doing. This would be the third consecutive year in a row that our taxes are going up, but our budget, we're under budget. We have money in reserve. Why is this happening? We have people who cannot afford, they're worried. We've got widows, we've got people with 4 children that can't afford groceries. And they're flat out told, if you can't afford it, sell your farm, sell your property. Mr. Kelly, you said that. Then she should just sell it.
What are you talking about?
You told Mr. Meyer that he was telling you a story about a woman that was having difficulty and couldn't afford her taxes. And you told Mr. Meyer, Roddy Meyer, that then she should just sell?
What I stated to him was, if she couldn't meet her need, that maybe selling some of the property or renegotiating the rent for it, if you have 400 acres, I would think you could make rent.
Okay, that makes sense, and thank you for clarifying that, because I did not get
Appreciate
that.
that,
There's
That's
two sides of every story, so, and you sometimes, when we're talking, we're good friends, and so when we're talking, that passion comes through and you don't get the full
May
story.
I ask you a question before you go on?
Mhm.
You stated earlier in your statement that the regulations that we're talking about here were causing higher taxes.
I think they would.
How do you?
Yeah, I'm curious how you get
I don't get that.
You have more water lines that have to be built, you've got more fire departments that have to come in. Let's say, for example, Mayette is a volunteer for right now. That's a problem right there. And then you have one police officer there. So you'd have to build police departments to take care of more people.
You only have one paid fire department in the county that I know of, and that's tribal. Everything else volunteer.
I understand, but if you start breaking down acreage and you start bringing more people, then you're gonna have to do something.
But you realize that when you build a house, that brings in more revenue also through property tax?
We're already bringing in more revenue and you're raising our taxes again. So,
But I just want to make sure you do understand
I
that
understand how
when
you're-
homes are built.
I worked in real estate for a long time, so I
Yeah,
do
right.
understand.
Yeah, that generates revenue.
But I also understand there's consequences to what we put in place, and eventually it will raise taxes. It takes me where we're at right now in District 3, it takes the fire department, unfortunately, I do know this and I had to time it, 45 minutes to get to my house. You start having more people that come in, and they were coming in, okay, you're gonna generate more income, so you would have to build, in my mind, what happens if you have 4 different houses on fire?
I'm not the fire.
But
And
this is,
and
but
the fire
understand,
districts are separate from the county.
you're right, I understand the point that I'm trying to make there. And the other thing that we need to understand is what is in everyone's warranty deeds and their titles. So there were rights when we bought our land that we were guaranteed. And we need, the only thing that I ask is that we remember to make sure, I beg of you to be constitutional when you think of these things and put things into place, and not go the route of Shawnee County, which was discussed in the planning committee on the percentage. Shawnee County's regulations, that's why I didn't move there. And so I think you will be upsetting a lot of people if you try to adopt Shawnee County's regulations here. And I just like you to consider that, and that's all I ask. That's it.
I'd like to address one of them. You talked about taxes. We are faced with an issue that we may be the only county that's experiencing this. There are other counties that could do this. Jackson County is losing revenue, taxable revenue, because of land that's placed in USA Trust. We have lost 33,000 acres. We cannot tax because of the U.S. government. We, as the first time ever, have reached out to Congress and the Senate to try to get them to help us with that. It's never been done before. And we may be the only county that's lost that amount of taxable land. We also are working with the state because this highway down here is in between 3 casinos. Our law enforcement and our courts are stretched to the max. We want the state to help us out too. We're doing those 2 things. So we're actively doing things. It may not get a lot of print or radio time or television time, but I assure you the last several years we've been working on that and we're trying to get that. If we get some form of relief, it's going to help us all.
Yeah, and Dan, I do understand. I know Jackson County, 50% of it is taxable, and they don't pay taxes. And so I do understand. My husband works for the tribal government, and we see what's going on.
Okay.
So, so we are aware. It just doesn't sit right with me, the fact that we need to increase the tax levy, or when we have a budget that is already working. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to point something out that I work, and these 2 gentlemen know that too, work with the county clerk. We're going from 72.45, a half 1% of 72.5 on a $125,000 house. Over the course of the year, it goes up 72 cents. Commercial real estate, it about doubles. So we understand that, we're working on that, but someone's got to do it. And we've tried, and we're trying.
And the valuations that went up, we have nothing to do with the valuations that go up. Yes, the taxes are going up also, but you have to realize too, our expenses are going up too. Tubes tripled in price last year for roads. So, I mean, things like that, we have no control over. Rock's gone up, everything's gone up.
Rock is another thing, and I think I said this last year too. You know that the reservation actually gets a discount on their gravel. Have you ever tried to get a discount on the gravel?
We do.
We do.
We negotiated that.
All right.
Yes.
We negotiated that within 6 months of Dan and I becoming commissioners because the previous commissioners allowed that quarry to go in without the road being built to specs for that kind of truck traffic. So we renegotiated it and got a discount and they pay us on an annual basis, plus they helped us rebuild that road.
Plus, they give us dust control for a portion of the road every year.
That's correct.
So that being said, and this is personal, so I know those trucks are not supposed to be on 158, and you said something about somebody could write a ticket if they're on that road. Who would that be and who would they call?
So when you said they were on
They
158,
drive 158,
okay,
between
so
B and W.
correct. They have the right to go in the county in different areas. But if they are traveling from the quarry to 75 highway, they're required by county resolution to use 142.
Pretty sure
But
that
if they're
this is
going, gonna turn at W and they're going to the north end of the county, that's the route they're gonna take. And we took extra steps because some of this traffic, and we understand this, these guys gotta make a living too. And so we took extra steps to dust control T Road for the next 3 miles, I believe it is.
I read that.
And in order to help out the people who live along there, but to require them to come all the way out to 75 highway and go a mile north and then go 5 miles back to the east didn't seem to make sense.
I understand
Yeah.
that. But
So-
if you think of where the quarry is at 142, okay, and they're on 158, this is not them doing something, this is the quickest way for me to go through their time and go. The problem is, they're going at 45, 55 miles an hour, I'm heading out to the mailbox and I have to dodge for my life.
I understand.
What, do
So
you
call
know
the
what
sheriff.
trucks they were?
I don't, but I'm starting to pay more attention, and I tried to follow the one the other day, and it was just too dusty, I couldn't.
So what you would do is call the Jackson County Sheriff, call the dispatch. Probably don't need to call 911 because they're very busy. Call their administrative line, let them know if you can get a description. Tim has been very good about this, sending people down and sitting in the area to try to watch for them. And he has pulled people over and explained to them. Sometimes that's all it takes, but if it takes writing a hard copy, then he has the authority to do that. So, okay?
Perfect.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Hey, Mark, can I address something you said earlier, real quick?
Sure.
You talked about prices going, I thought you had a long conversation with Keith about this.
I'm hard of hearing, Rowdy.
Okay, so I had a long conversation with Keith about this. Your guys' gravel prices up, so are ours. So is the grocery store, so is everything. You know, the average home price in the last 5 years is up 50%, but incomes are up 9%. Which is my big point to him is, making sure we do it at the right time because people are hurting.
I understand that.
To her point.
Sure.
Yeah. Who's next?
Only mine.
Hey, Rex.
I'm Rex Larson, everybody should know him. I'm sorry, thank you, sir. I'd like to address the question you guys asked the audience. And that was, how can you guys get more people here? Well, the first thing is when we walked in here, the first thing is said, you guys got 3 minutes. That was a real negative statement. Now, wait a minute. That was a real negative statement you made to us. If you guys want to get people here, you need to talk to people like me. Because I would actually believe that a lot of these people here today are partially because I've come to your meetings, and I've come to your meetings on your evening meetings, and I've complimented you on, I've been to a few of them, and you went to every other month. And then that's really hard to remember which month it is. But
Odd
if you
months.
give
Odd months.
odd months.
Yep.
Okay, so if you give a chance to someone like me, I will get people to meetings. I guarantee you I'll get people to meetings. But I need to have a consensus with you that we'll have an opportunity to speak. I went to the meeting that was discussed about the zoning on last week. And the girls in the zoning office were really great. We had an issue of not being allowed to speak, and that was addressed, and we were given an opportunity to speak. But all during the meeting, we were not accepted as being part of the meeting. We sat in the back and we got them to increase the deal so we could see it, but we could barely hear it. Some of the people in the back couldn't hear it. I felt we were not part of the meeting. We got to give our expression at the end after a little debate. So if you want people to your meetings, I will get people to your meetings. I guarantee I'll have them there. But I don't want to come in and say, you got 3 minutes. That's, give people a chance. If somebody's up here rambling, whatever, find a way to resolve the situation we want there. I will have people's meetings. If you guys work with me, I will work with you, and we will always have so much meetings because I greatly appreciate your meetings. I want to be a part of your meetings, and I want you guys to work with us as a group. You know, I want to be a part of this meeting, and one of the things I want to talk about was the quality of life that we have in Jackson County. You know, I've been all over the world. I've seen a lot of stuff, and we have something that's very special that we have quality of life. And the thing with the 20 acres down to 3 acres is, I never believed it till before, a few years ago, when our previous commissioner said that he didn't want to see our county farm grounds, you know, be all developed. And I thought about it for a while, and that really made sense to me. Now, I know down south that there's an opportunity for people to build houses, but what we're becoming is a bedroom community to speak, a bedroom county. And if that's what the consensus of the people down south is, that's fine. If that's the consensus of the whole county, that's fine. But there's several people, and I think some of them in this room today, that we would like to keep the quality of life that we have, and I'm sure that you commissioners might feel the same way. We need to keep some kind of zoning that works for everybody. But if you guys allow 3-acre building sites, I'm going to buy as much farmland as I can. And I will make a fortune selling on 3-acre tracts to everybody I can. And that's something that I would do, that's something any developer would do. We don't need that here. We need to raise our tax base, and I was at a meeting with you folks. I applied for a position on the zoning board. I told at least a man I know that I would be willing to serve on a board of local residents that would promote economic development in this area, and I think we can put together a group of people that would do that. I would like to see economic development here. As far as residential, you know, more and more people, I might disagree with that a little bit. They get 11% percentage of the tax revenue is based on 11%. Commercial's 25%. I would rather see a few small businesses come in rather than a whole bunch of houses. When we get a whole bunch of houses, what you have is a bedroom community. The people, they work in the people, they're going to spend their money in the people, they're going to come here, and they're going to drive back and forth to people. They're not going to go home. I know people that have moved to this area that never come to home in the south part of the county. They do pay their taxes at 11% of the valuation. But let's all work together and come up with a plan that's best for everybody.
Somebody had a great vision in the past and put together maps that cover areas that should be targeted that are along Highway maybe 75 for some of those developments, because as Rex stated,
It was done by a company, they came in and.
right, and I think they had a good point, because if you're gonna have that be a factor, focus on the zones that are most likely to be impacted on by that. It would raise tax base, but have the least impact on the rural areas, right? So along Highway 75 is a big corridor where they said, hey, maybe in the future we could, you know, raise more houses, right? But I don't think any additional legislation needs to go, or regulation needs to go into place, because it already exists within the comprehensive plan. There's already
But
maps.
the comprehensive plan isn't what we go by, it's the current regulations. And again, what I was trying to say earlier is, our thought process was, because we get a lot of feedback on building, and like Dan said, we've had a lot of builders and people who have said, hey, can you make this process easier if someone owns land and they want their kids to have 3 acres, or a family member to be able to have 3 acres? And we're like, okay, let's walk through this. What does it look like? So we do, from time to time, we take a look at what are other counties doing? Because, I mean, that's what you do. You look at their regulation and you go, okay, is this working for them? I even reached out to county commissioners in Shawnee County and talked to them a little bit about their thought process. So it's not like we just walked up one day and went,
Right.
but maybe it does make sense to limit it somehow. And I don't know what that would look like.
Well, as a constituent and somebody who owns land in the A1 district, I moved there with the intent of moving into an A1 district. You know, I moved there with the intent of not subdividing my land and changing the immediate land.
And you wouldn't have to. You understand that, right?
Right, I don't want to. And what my question would be to the board would be, what prevents one of my neighbors from selling off 80 acres across the street and subdividing that down into 3-acre parcels, and all of a sudden I live in the middle of a subdivision, and that would go against the intent and purpose of the current zoning regulations that are in effect currently, the ones that are proposed according to the updates to the zoning regulations, and it would also go against the guiding principles set forth by some extremely smart people in the comprehensive plan. The two they don't seem to jive whatsoever, and I
But
can't find a way.
they can do that right now, sir.
What's that?
They can do that right now.
Right, but I have protections currently. I would receive a notice stating that somebody is going to rezone, and by dropping it down to 3-acre parcel subdivision, I lose that notification, and I lose any sort of.
Well, it's not a
input.
3-acre, it wouldn't be a 3-acre parcel subdivision that they'd be allowed to build. It's just to be able to build, and maybe one of the
If
things
they
that.
did the rural development deal, then yes, it would be. But what I'm saying is, why would you lose? Why would you lose? Because this is a good suggestion. Okay, fine, you want to break it down into 3-acre parcels. Right now, it's not being rezoned, you are correct. We can put in the regulations, hey, if this does happen, somebody wants to sell off 3 acres, all they have to do, every landowner within 1,000 feet or whatever it is right now, has to be notified.
Yeah. Maybe that's something that we
You know,
do.
maybe that's something that we need to look at.
And the other thing that I wanted to do is put a minimum amount of frontage. So that you don't have a driveway and then a house and, that type of thing. Put a minimum amount of, but there again, now we're back to over-regulating, right?
Right,
And
and that's
so-
why I like it is the way it is now, because the zoning regulations that are currently in place state a very logical sense, and then the planning, the comprehensive plan also states that, one house per 20 acres is the desired density, and I think that it should just be left alone.
And
Because the
that
current
wasn't-
process is working, because people are building houses,
Well-
people are getting what they want, it's a little bit more difficult, but that difficulty is well balanced with the rights of the people who own property around them.
I guess I'll respectfully disagree with you that that's, years ago when that was created, that may have been the thought process. But today, I can tell you, there are a lot of people that come to us saying, you've got to help us. There's got to be a way that we can go through this process, build a house on 3 acres, and not have to rezone it, and not have to do all these things. So there is a lot of, those folks just don't happen to be here today, so.
So,
Yeah.
follow
No,
up.
I'm gonna let the lady.
I understand, with the common growing, rural growing, there's gotta be some compromise. I can understand for some of the same reasons that we like Jackson County, others like Jackson County. Maybe in southern Jackson County where it's close to Topeka, people are looking to do that. So if there is, again, like, even if it's not a subdivision and it's just being divided off 3 acres at a time, and I know you can do that by a special permit,
Right.
but when you blanket statement it, that does give developers the opportunity to come in, buy the land and split it off. And rather you call it a subdivision, you still have a bunch of neighbors closer than what you wanted in the first place. But coming to some sort of compromise, maybe you limit it to a certain area, like you said, a few miles within a city, so that we also have the opportunity to be out from the city amongst the other people, because I know because I know there's a lot of people like us that are looking for large acres of land. I know it's getting more difficult to afford,
It is.
but we want that space to be able to do the things we want to do, as well as, not have our neighbors right on top of us.
And you see the balance that we're forced with is landowner rights, but what's my rights as a landowner, and I don't want them to be able to do this. So it's not an easy position to be in when it comes to trying to figure out what
A healthy balance.
a healthy balance, keeping landowners' rights. I'm a firm believer, and always have been, always will be, in landowner rights. If you buy it, you own it, you pay the taxes on it, it's yours to do with it as you see fit. But there has to be some regulation, so that people aren't running raw sewage out across the ground, that people aren't, whatever you can imagine. And so there has to be a balance between that, and when it comes to this, we've had a lot of people that really want us to simplify that, and that was really, trying to take that out of there. So maybe there's some other directions that we can go with frontages that will prevent some of that.
Or a higher minimum acreage, because 3 acres is really not that
But-
Tiny.
But you gotta understand, too, that when we hear from these folks, they don't want more than 3 acres. You know, there are people out there that want to build a house and have a nice yard, but they don't want to have to deal with 5 acres, 6 acres, 7 acres, 10 acres. Me personally, I love having the land, but there are people who want to come home every day and just have a house and a nice yard. And so that's the balance that we have to try to figure out.
And I did specifically address this at the meeting, and I asked if the county had consulted with the rural water district, and I got a deer in the headlights look, honestly, and they said no. And the fact that the county had not, the board at least, had not consulted with the rural water district as far as providing water services to some of these folks was a
Right, but that's,
concern.
I'm gonna.
Keith, would you address that since you're a member of
Yeah.
the board?
What's that? Yeah, I'm a member of Rural Water District 1
Right.
on their board, have been for 23 years. Again, I know in that region where Jackson 1 serves, we have enough water for 900 new customers.
Right, but that's not
That's our
our district, and the
I
zoning
understand that.
regulations
And so-
didn't coincide with that.
Right, so if you live in an area where it's Jackson 3 or it's Jackson Top 1 or whatever it may be, it would be your responsibility to go to the water district and say, hey, can we get water here? Is that possible? I got folks who live right down the road from me. They didn't want to pay the line extension. They had to drive drill a well. They're on a cistern still because they couldn't afford the extension. But what I'm saying is some of that takes care of itself, and there won't be people built in certain areas just because they can't get water.
But ultimately, we all draw from the same resource being Banner Creek.
No,
Where
that
does-
is correct.
where does
That is
water
not correct.
draw from?
Jackson 1 pulls out of wells out of near the Soldier Creek, the Kansas River area. We have 2 connections. We have one with Shawnee Ford. We have a partnership with them where we draw water from them on a wholesale rate. And then in emergency connection, we maintain an emergency connection with Topeka City of Water.
Okay, and that's a huge topic, because water's life, and I understand that last year there was talks of water restrictions that were on the table, and would those water restrictions have affected District 1?
The water restrictions?
Correct, because of the
it-
water table at Banner Creek?
Not the table at Banner Creek, no, it wouldn't. The only time we do is we have certain criteria that have to be met by the state of Kansas, and once that meets, we suggest that people don't water their yards. But you would think that would be logic, but it isn't always. And as a matter of fact, I just met with Senator Jim Mannix last weekend. He sits in the water conference or water board for the state of Kansas. It is a huge deal in western Kansas. That's who he represents. So we had a great conversation about how can we make changes on our board and incentivize that people save water back here, just like what they're trying to do. So it's a huge conversation.
And it's a huge gamble, because drilling a well does not necessarily mean that you're gonna hit water, because we do have a neighbor that drilled a well
That is
and
correct.
has not produced enough
And it's very
water.
expensive.
And also has a cistern, but that well cannot support that house, and they're having a whole water.
So shout out for Jackson 1, we do have the cheapest water in the county. And we really do. I mean, due to upgrades and things that we've done, we have very, very reasonable water in Jackson. And we serve a big district.
Keith, back on
Yes.
that 3 acres.
Yeah.
So one of the things, I don't know if anybody's ever been, Southern Jackson County or Cass County over in Missouri. So I sold a lot of real estate over there.
Okay.
And one of the issues were they started breaking down and allowing the 3 acres and allowing all that. The next issue then we had was developer regulations coming in that needed to be recorded and put in the warranty deed. Next thing you know, we start having issues with, you can have your acreage, but no cow. You can only have horses, no chickens. You can have 3 chickens, but you can't have any roosters. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I don't want to tell somebody how many chickens they can have.
Right,
I really don't care.
But then you also have the people that come in and all of a sudden, they don't like the smell of money. We call cow manure, goat manure, we call that
A
money.
cow-calf operation for
We live to
35
smell
years.
money. And so, but the thing is that they don't like that smell, so then it starts causing more problems. And then, you know, so keep that in mind when you do that and you're looking at where
Yeah.
the circle is, that's
I appreciate
what I
that.
would ask.
Yeah.
One
All right.
one
Right,
closing-
Okay, go ahead.
One closing thing, you know, you guys got a tough decision to make, but it all comes down to if we're gonna be a bedroom county, and then how much schools and stuff will look like, as more people move in, more schools do. Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me speak.
You bet.
You bet.
I'd like to say.
Who else? Who else?
One last
Anybody?
thing.
Go ahead, Dan, you've got something you want to say?
We get approached by builders and developers all the time to develop areas that they want to develop, but they want us to put in the roads, the sewers, the water lines, they want us to do it, and taxpayers pay for it. Initially, we don't think it's right. We think you go out, you develop this piece of land, it's on the developer or the buyer if they have it right away. I personally lived in Topeka where I had specials, road, sewer, water, you name it. So we have,
Yeah, that's a great point, Dan. We said long ago that when we became commissioners, there were several developers that wanted to build these cul-de-sacs and wanted us to adopt their roads. We said, we're not gonna do it because very few people, only those 6 houses on that road, takes the same amount of dollars to maintain that road, but only 6 people benefit from that road. And so we told them, if you're gonna build it, you build it, you maintain it on your own dime. And I think it's worked well. So,
HOAs.
anybody else?
I would ask if everybody here has signed the list so we can have it for the minutes, I would appreciate it. So.
Well, good
Thank you for
conversation.
coming.
I appreciate you guys coming in. And I do appreciate the feedback. At the end of the day, just so you know,
Not just who spoke, but everybody who's here attended, so we can have. it for the minutes.
zoning and planning board, I really wish they would make some recommendations back to us. Again, this is a conversation that started with Kate's office, and that's what this process is all about. They talk about it, they visit with the public, they bounce it back to us, we bounce it back to them. It's a give and take, and we work together to find a solution. That's what it's all about. So, thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you, appreciate your comments.
And
Yep.
do come back. Do come back.